All right, good morning. I'd like to welcome you to the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Golden Rain Foundation, Laguna Woods, a California nonprofit mutual benefit corporation, Tuesday, August 1st at 9:30 a.m. And I would like to ask you the following things. First of all, please check that your cell phone is turned off. I am asking you to please turn off your cell phone. The other thing is that if you've taken advantage of the water or the coffee, we request that you please put a lid on the cup. We are very proud of our new boardroom and want to keep it spick and span. So if you don't have a lid on your cup, they're over there, and please use a lid. Now for the board members, I'd like to remind everybody, of course, we have several people that have not arrived yet. As you open your mouth, turn on your mic. And when done, turn it off, please. We will not be using Granicus to make motions. So when we make a motion and second a motion, we're doing it the old-fashioned way. We will not be using the screen. We'll just do it by recognition, okay? And then...
Request to speak. You still have to request to speak.
Okay.
Request to speak, and then you can make a motion.
Yeah. I've got it all here, guys. Just give me a break. Voting, remember, you see the blip, and then however you voted, that rectangle gets smaller. And unless you see the smaller rectangle, it has not recorded your vote. So you'll know that your vote went through if you see the smaller rectangle. And then we will be using the request to speak button, okay? All right. I'm going to ask Tom Circle to please say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand, face the flag, your right hand over your heart. All active and retired military may salute. Please begin. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay, we have, we're on Village Television, and I'm not seeing the gal. Oh, there you are. Good morning. So the globe is here. We have a quorum, however, Director Fleshley is upstairs trying to be at two meetings at the same time. She'll be joining us shortly. And Director Perrick is still at a hospital in San Bernardino with her husband. She's very hopeful that they will be sometime today en route back to Laguna Woods Village. And Director Gross is on a cruise celebrating all kinds of things. And I have no idea where Director Beckett is. So that's where we stand at the moment. So now I'd like approval of the agenda, and I know we're going to have quite a few comments on the agenda. So request to speak.
Did you get me?
I-
Me too.
Okay, Joanne.
I move that we approve the agenda.
All right, do you have any?
There are some modifications to some of the agenda and some of the issues coming up, and I don't know, I actually will defer to staff. Would you like us to make modifications now, or would you like to do them as we move along? Which works better for you?
I think you can make them right now. That's fine.
Okay.
Now,
My,
do we need to second
Yeah,
this
I'll
yet?
second it.
Okay,
okay, thanks,
so
Judith.
was moved by Joanne and seconded by
Judith.
Judith to approve the agenda. So now continue with your comments, Joanne.
Okay, the two resolutions that are blue papered in this agenda packet, the very last resolve further. 3 years ago, the GRF board determined to eliminate the purpose of, and to simply say, on behalf of the corporation, to carry out this resolution. And on agenda item 12A and 13A, I request that you eliminate the purpose of in the last sentence, and to continue doing so. That's number one. And number two, on all agendas that are held in the boardroom, the GRF had asked that the hearing loop technology be, notification be placed on the very bottom as a footnote on the first page.
This time, because I was out of town, they did it manually and not on Granicus, so that's why it didn't get put on there. So
Okay, well,
going forward.
it's intermittent, but I think I
Right.
wanted it on the record, and I trust you,
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
Thank you. Those are my two comments.
All right, Joan Millman?
Okay, on the, under number 12 of the agenda, on the second page, we need to take out the words "and waive reading of the resolution." This occurs several times. We don't waive it unless we move to waive it, so therefore it's not to be waived. You'll find it also repeated under new business. So take out the words "and waive reading of the resolution" whenever they appear until
It's
we.
12A and 13A.
Okay. Also, on some typos, on 13A, entertain a motion of approval, not to approval. It's either to approve a contract or use of instead of to. And then, in that same paragraph under 13A, it should be lawn bowling greens. It's Bowling Greens. Okay, quickly. I think those are, oh, I've got more. On page, under 5A on page 2 of 8, third paragraph down, in the second line, take out the first "that" and take out the "they" after concepts and put in the word "that." So it reads, the groups that use the PAC will have interviews with the designers and gain input regarding the concepts that will be presented. In the next paragraph, the second line down, under commendation to staff, take out the word "drove," D-R-O-V-E, in the second line. A pickup truck sped past the gate. You don't need to drove it, okay? Oh, yes, right. And add up to pickup. So it should be pickup truck sped past. under paragraph, under number 7, the next to the last line, add commas for clarity. Comma after the first 2017 and a comma after the second 2017.
Joan, I have no idea where you are.
Paragraph number
Page 2 of
7,
8.
page 2 of 8, under 5A. Paragraph up 7, update from VMS.
So we're reading new content number.
You find it?
5A. It's under 5A.
Again, it's agenda item 5A, page 2 of 8. You get it?
Got it.
Yeah, okay. Are you okay? And again, under the next paragraph, which is the CEO report, change Clubhouse 1, it's the third line down. Clubhouse 1 should be capitalized, and the 1 should be a number to agree with Clubhouse 4 later in the paragraph. And I had a quick question, is the spelling of Tony Dower's name correct?
D-A-U-E-R.
Isn't it D-A-U-E-R?
That is it, that's correct.
Okay, on number 9, the second dot, I think it should be D-A-U-E-R instead of D-O-W-E-R. Okay, those are the ones I caught, and thank you. That's it.
Judith?
Okay, and on 12A, on the resolution itself, page 1 of 1, after the second whereas, it doesn't read right. It says, "An additional occupancy is a charged for." It should either be, take out the A and said a fee is charged, or put the fee is a charge. So pick one or the other, but it can't be both. So we can, want to take out the A and say a fee is charged? Take out the A, yeah. And then a little farther down, this next sentence, occupants residing in the unit, not in unit. Joan, wouldn't it be the unit? In the very next line, in excess of 2 occupants residing in the unit. And then put "and to account for additional use of community service." In a unit,
It should be A-N-N, but don't, A is fine.
okay.
A.
And then right after the semicolon or the comma, then you should put "and to account for additional use." You just don't go into "to account for additional use." Is that okay to leave it? It just doesn't read right. Okay, an additional occupancy is charged for each individual excess.
There's no occupancy fee.
Yeah, is charged, occupancy fee is charged, yeah. For each individual in excess of 2 occupants residing in a unit. Okay. And then the very next word, it says, "to account for additional use of community service." Shouldn't it be "and to account for," that's where I want that. Okay. Okay.
But there should be no comment.
And then a question on, now therefore be it resolved, why do we have September 5th? That would be a staff request. It's normally today.
30 days notice, which isn't put in there.
Is that why? But usually, it doesn't say 30 days notice. So is there a date issue?
13A says August 1st.
Yeah, why would,
Maybe that one's different. Maybe because they don't want to put it policy.
usually that's the day that, if we're going to pass this resolution today, then it should be today's date.
No.
But there's a 30-day notice.
This is
But
just
that's
for the
okay.
first reading. You're not actually passing it today. It has to go on the 30-day notice, and then you do your final vote in September. So it's not in effect until September 5th.
Well, then we need to say that. We
It's usually stated
Yeah,
that
it's usually
there's a
stated
30-day
if
waiting
that's-
period, and that statement is not in the resolution.
We usually don't put that in the resolution.
Yes, we
In the
do.
past, we have.
Okay.
And then the very last sentence, corporation to carry out The purpose of this, okay, that's, oh, Jo, she already got that.
Yeah, we
Okay,
got
never mind.
that.
Okay, that one's taken care of, thank you.
Leslie, September 1st is a Friday. Should it not then be September 1st, or is there some reason?
September 5th, we have our meeting.
So that-
and we have
thank you.
Labor Day.
Never mind, Leslie.
Okay, Joan.
The last, and waive reading on page, agenda item 13, page 1 of 2. First paragraph, again, take out, and waive reading of the resolution. Just eliminate those words again.
Does that conclude yours? All right, Diane?
Item 5A, page 3 of 8, for the consent calendar. 11A is missing, and I assume that's because it was taken off the consent calendar. But if that's true, then 11D, I think, was also taken off the consent calendar. Is that, and so maybe D should also come off, or else 11A can go back on, but that was a consistency. And then I just had a question, maybe now's not the time, but on
Okay,
11.
well, let's resolve what you brought up first. So we took 2 items off the consent calendar and only one shows as being taken off, correct?
Right. that's
So
what-
we need to be consistent. We either leave both of them on or take both of them off.
Right, because we
Take
talked.
both of them off.
We talked about.
Take
things,
both of
right?
them off. All right. Continue, Diane.
And then on item 11A, page 1 of 4, the Aquedettes, are they asking, well, the line says, "The committee discussed the Aquedettes' request for a fixed dollar amount of $12.50 for setup, including chairs, lifeguards, ticket sales at the recreation office, or clubhouses." Is it or is it and? Okay.
All
I
right.
think that's it.
So for those of you that arrived, Director Freshley and Director Beckett, we are on the approval of the agenda. And what I have to explain to the audience is that we literally did not have a corporate secretary for the past week plus. And so people that normally don't do our agenda were charged with the task of doing the agenda. So we're not nitpicking, but it is important that we make these things correct. And we're fully acknowledging the circumstances under which this was produced. It's not a criticism. Richard?
Another question.
Yes, I'd like to.
Richard, but I do not see a request to speak.
I pushed it, then,
Okay, now I see it.
on 11C, I'd like that moved to 13B.
But all we're doing is the agenda. We're not doing the consent calendar right now, are we? Okay. All right,
Okay.
so
C goes to 13. C goes to 13B.
okay, got it. All right. Are we now, oh, Diane.
Sorry, on 5B, 1 of 2, I have the last names of those people, but if you want, I can just give it to you later. Is that good?
Okay. Okay, so are we ready to approve the agenda as corrected, amended, and Director Beckett?
I want to ask a question about future agenda items, number 15. Entertain a motion to increase the trust facility fee from $2,500 to $5,000. I see that's on our closed meeting agenda this afternoon. Are we going to bring it to make a final decision today and then bring it back, or?
No. It's
So-
a future agenda item. It will be dealt with as a future agenda item.
So we're not going to make a final decision today at the closed session?
We're discussing it in closed session with our attorneys.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, I do. I'm Joan.
Okay, as you can see, there's one more waive reading of the resolution to eliminate on that same page that John was speaking of. On the agenda under
Where it says 15A.
15A.
Yeah, but that's a future agenda. All right, we'll just take it off.
Take it off,
All right,
please.
okay. All right, now, are we ready to approve the agenda? I'll commence voting. Cease voting. All right, the agenda passes. The motion to approve the agenda passes. Okay? So now we're down to approving the minutes of July 5th, July 13th, morning meeting, afternoon meeting, and July 21st meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Richard has moved. Who has seconded? All right. It was moved by Richard Palmer and seconded by Tom Circle. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please commence voting. I'll abstain. All right. All right. Cease voting. All right. Motion passes. Minutes are approved. We're now down to the report of the chair. This morning, I have the unpleasant task of having to distance this board from the behavior of one of its directors. As you remember, it was only at our June meeting that we censored this same director. On July 20th, a letter was published in the Globe with the signature John Beckett. While it was not signed as Director John Beckett, there is the fact, which was just reinforced in a harassment workshop all board directors attended yesterday morning in this very room. As a director, you are the face of the village and your director's hat is always on. The most offensive comments in the letter which appeared in the Globe are, our managing agents, past and present, have operated behind a wall of secrecy. This statement is a direct slap in the face of CEO Brad Hudson and Community Manager Lori Moss. He continues, their accounting practices are so complex and arcane that only a government auditor can make sense of them. This impugns the integrity of Financial Services Director Betty Parker. And the letter finishes with, why make it easier for management to keep us in the dark? This board, with the exception of Director Beckett and Director DiLorenzo, wants to go on record as not endorsing or supporting the statements in this letter and wants to give its 100% support of our management team and the financial services team. I once again call on Director Beckett to resign from this board. If he wants to continue to make unfounded and unsubstantiated accusations, then do it as a non-board member. Your behavior exposes this entire board to potential litigation. It has already cost GRF, Mutual 50, and the VMSI board legal fees in dealing with your inappropriate behavior. This will also be a discussion topic in our closed executive session under item 7, discuss and consider litigation matters. Okay, now we are at the update from our VMSI director, Lisa Bender.
Good morning. I'm Lisa Bender, a member of the VMS board. For those not familiar with the VMS board, we are 9 members appointed by GRF and the mutuals. Our function as a board is to provide oversight to management and all issues related to employees. We continually benchmark compensation, do benefits comparisons, monitor IT development, organization design issues, and improvements to customer service, among other issues. Last time I reported on the development of the second yearly strategic plan, which organizes our work and that of the staff into 5 major enduring goals. What has been rewarding about doing this goal setting that has become a communal language for people talking about VMS management practice. These goals provide a backdrop to management and employee action and why we do what we do. I have even heard residents use the language of the goals, even if they're not particularly feeling generous about the execution of some of these goals. I will not recap the 60-plus items in the plan, but again provide a few examples of activities that touch each goal. And the goals are exemplary customer service, facilitating efficient operations, becoming a safe community, transparent communications, and becoming an employee of choice. We meet with senior staff on a rotating basis where they present the activities they are working on, their success, and what roadblocks exist to progress being made. For instance, related to efficient operations and exemplary customer service, there have been delays in manner alterations, including long lines and inspections that were not timely. I know this because I recently did some alteration on my mom's property. There were staff shortages due to illness and I think turnover. Staff worked across boundaries of their own organizations to bring in former staff who had moved on to new and different jobs, and there was hiring of new staff with relevant experience who were coming up to speed. Further, there is a plan to have both a walk-in situation and an appointment-based system for complicated issues like architectural and contractual contractor plans. There is a team-based spirit that's merging that is working for all of us. And there's been a lot of progress in that area, and there's still more to come. One story I enjoyed hearing about related to doing customer service training was with landscaping staff. You might have noticed that our landscaping staff smiles and says hello. But I digress. The trainer I spoke to relayed her work to link why landscape work and workers are so important to the village. We know we can see beautiful trees and plantings every day and probably take it a bit for granted. But what do new residents, prospective buyers see? They see the landscaper's work and how important it is to the beauty of our days, every life. It's more than a job. It's more than just the one grass plot that you just mowed. Okay, dwelling live. We're falling short of our goal to reach a minimum of 2,000 households on the application. We're just nearly at 1,000. And dwelling live, to remind people, is an application for your phone, computer, or tablet to allow you to manage your own gate clearance rather than needing to call the gate clearance number. We've seen a dramatic decrease in phone calls to the call center, but would like to see even more. So I encourage everybody to find Dwelling Live on the village website. Recently, we've done some work on becoming an employer of choice because we've had some challenges with our hiring. Currently in Orange County, unemployment is very low, and finding qualified candidates has been very challenging. A couple of things have been done to ameliorate this situation. First, all current openings are now online, and applicants can search the openings and send in their interest online. Finally. Okay. We're also going to bring back an employee referral program that will roll out soon, and that is a program to be used only for full-time positions. We've added a resident employee referral system as again for residents making referrals for full-time positions. The kinds of employees we need right now are project engineers, program managers, and some skilled trade associates. Visit the website to see the openings online, finally, and help us bring employees to the village. Now, Lori Moss has been sending me lots of kudos that we're getting from residents, and I'd just like to read a few of them. Okay, I was in resident services on Wednesday, July 12th. Teresa was assisting me with a landscape request, and an incident with an upset resident and property services personnel occurred. Who would believe? There are 6 to 8 workers trying to assist this resident. They should be commended for their calm and very professional attitude. Finally, the resident settled down and was satisfied. Teresa kept working with me during this time. She got the landscape crew to come out and take care of my problem right away. The trees were trimmed out front of my house. Okay, we had our 16-year-old water heater replaced today. All went off without a hitch, and we wish to commend the staff who assisted us with this event. Blanca Williams was our go-to person, and she handled all the details professionally and quickly. Angel from Plumbing came on time, and he was pleasant and professional. He answered our questions and got the water heater installed quickly and without problems. Then Brett Nazi, the electricians, installed the Watts device and the necessary 100-volt line to power unit, and the wiring was completed all within about 6 hours. All of my questions were answered, and my fears have gone away about this job. Everything was done efficiently and professionally. Keep up the good work. Okay, another one. Okay, I just got off the phone with Nade from Address. She wanted us to know how pleased she was after working with you. Nade said you were very helpful, extremely nice, and what a great job you did in explaining everything to her. She made it a call to call me twice to make sure I knew. And last one, a resident who was leaving gate 3 saw a tree that was obstructing entrance through the gate, and he sent an email about that. And he sent a second email saying, you guys get the Platinum Award for being the most responsive management employees I have dealt with in the village. As I was leaving the Clubhouse 3 post office around 1 p.m., I noticed a gentleman cutting back that very obstructive plant. The ink wasn't even dry on my email to this yet. Many kudos to you for all being incredibly responsive. So, we're getting a lot of kudos like that. We'd like to let our employees know it's important that when they do something well, they're told about it, just as important as when they're doing something not so well, that they're counseled about that as well. Okay, a couple of last comments. At the last time I was here, we said we don't have fun as part of the strategic plan, but over the 1,500 residents who attended the July 4th celebration, we did have fun. And the Harvest Hoedown, I think, is still on the plan. And I think our recreation staff under Brian Gruner rocks. Okay, and speaking of fun, continue or consider becoming a board member or an advisor to the many boards. Share your wisdom, expertise, and common sense with the community. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Lisa. The next item on the agenda is the report of our CEO, Brad Hudson.
Thank you very much, Honorable President Parker, members of the board, members of the community. Always a pleasure to chat about what we're doing and hear later about what we're not doing. So it's kind of a two-part affair here. Anyway, we're kind of finalizing the budgetary process, which is pretty elaborate and involved, and obviously multiple boards and committee meetings, and we're really finalizing that. I think residents will be pleased that this budget should be fairly easy on the pocketbook. So I know that's important to all of us, and we try to be responsible in developing those spending plans for the next year. A lot of stuff we're working on right now, really focused on maintenance. A lot of work at Clubhouse 4. What you're going to see over the next couple of weeks is that facility being tented for termites for the first time in its history. It's never been tented before. Last year, middle of the year, maybe 6 months ago, went through and did a pretty extensive dry rot work on that, mainly limited to the exterior. And now we're coming back with a big tenting program to get that stuff that we can't see, mainly termites that are really in the interior of the building. So that will be a big improvement. When we're done with that, then we're going to focus on some remodeling of the restrooms there, particularly the two that are down next to the old bridge room that are a very frequent stop for our golfers out on the course. And so those are in pretty bad shape with a lot of mold and mildew and dry rot. And so those two restrooms will get a redo right after the tenting is completed. So if you've been to Clubhouse 4 lately, you've seen that it's been painted, that particularly the wood elements that make up the structural components there, mainly the beams and whatnot that have been treated for dry rot and sealed and painted. And then also you've probably seen that the showers and locker rooms have been spiffed up a bit. And then also you've seen the pool solar there, which is now providing hot water to that pool at a fraction of the cost of the gas heaters that we used previously. So I think all in all, a lot of well overdue work at Clubhouse 4 is going to make that an attractive facility for our residents for many, many years to come. Similarly, we're doing some things at Clubhouse 1, not to the same extent as we are at Clubhouse 4, but we are doing a lot of painting and blinds and fixing the planters that have been broken for many years in the back. And then there are many more improvements slated for next year as well. So Clubhouse 1 and 4, really a big focus of this board right now. You've probably noted a lot of paving out in the community. This is a time of year we like to do that, and we're doing a lot of reconstruction work this year, not really limited to slurry seal as you see oftentimes. There really is more reconstruction work, particularly around gates where there's a lot of traffic, where the road has become severely damaged over the years. And I was out at, I think, gate 10 last week, and there was a lot, yeah. Ryan is nodding, yeah, right next to us. Yeah, we reconstructed that entryway there. It was still under work when I was done. I suspect it's done by now. And so it should be a much smoother ride going out gate 10. There's a number of other areas as well where we're doing major reconstructive work. And then many too where we're doing slurry seal. And it hasn't been really advertised too much, but I know Ernesto has some interest in doing RV Lot B this summer, if we can make arrangements with all the folks in there. As a result of the Simulsat project, we're going to be in there touching up that asphalt anyway, where we cut all the holes and dug for a conduit and whatnot. So it'd be a nice time to use that same contractor to come in, do some reconstructive work in spots where it's needed in there, and then come back with the slurry seal and restriping. So we're working with the RV wheelers and see if we can't pull that off for this summer. I'd like to do that. Does that mean my time's up? I don't know. Anyway, and so we're still kind of playing with that. Maybe it won't get done. It might be too short a notice, but it'd sure be nice to pull that off this year. And as I said, the Simulsat antenna is now in place. And Chuck tells me there's about 4,000 feet of cabling that has to be done. Each channel is cabled separately, and so what you will see is we will be using both antennas at the same time, and so individually moving channels off of there and onto the new antenna basically one at a time. And so it should be, I say should, be seamless for our residents, but as soon as I say that, something's gonna go awry. But if you notice something that seems unusual or a channel goes out or something, please call us right away so we can get on it. But overall, that should provide a much better experience for our residents. And the old antenna will be maintained as a backup in case there's some catastrophic problem in the future with the new antenna. So having that redundancy will be good as well. Similarly, we're doing a lot of work on the cable and internet infrastructure, connections and boxes and vaults, a lot of repair work out there. We've fired up the lasers that you authorized for us, and it really has increased the bandwidth. Many residents will require, as I said before, a new DOCSIS 3 modem to take advantage of those faster speeds, and West Coast has committed to providing those to our residents at no charge, including installation. So if they're really interested in faster speeds and have a need for it, please call West Coast. Usually, they're pretty busy right now because of all this work we're doing, so you probably have to leave a message, and we really got them hustling out there with all this work that we have going on, and they'll get back to you and arrange for a new modem for you so you can take advantage of this increased broadband capacity. Gates 8 and 9 should start in the near future. We're going to do a modest rehab of those, much like we did at 2 and 3 last year, just to clean them up a little bit. They have a lot of dry rot, old systems in there, and so we'll get those cleaned up. It's a very modest project, but one that's needed. And then we have to do some very minor improvements at Gate 10 due to some OSHA concerns relative to the landing area and where gate ambassadors stand and how they get in and out of there. And so there'll be a little bit of improvements going on there as suggested by OSHA. So all good things. And then I wanted to thank the residents who participated in the survey last week in terms of the kind of fitness classes they want to see. I'm going to send those results out to you later this week, maybe Friday with the regular blast or maybe individually. But I think around 1,500 residents responded and about the kind of fitness and exercise and dance classes that they prefer, and I wanted to reach out and just thank them for the response. That's pretty typical. Every time I've asked residents for their opinion on something, within a couple hours, I've got 1,500 to 2,000 responses. In the same case here, and I do appreciate you, and it does help inform the decision-making that we do. I did want to share that this last weekend, we started sort of a new effort, which is we have landscapers working on the weekends doing tickets. And so what we find is if we try to do that during the week, particularly this time of year when you have all this heavy growth, they have a real hard time just keeping up with the grass and the shrubs, especially because we had so much rain, that the tickets that individual residents call in and, I need a new plant here, or something died, or could you help us in front of our manor? So we're doing those on the weekend now. And so you should have seen, I think we had maybe 6 guys out here working 3 crews, going around taking care of individual resident requests. So we're going to keep that up for the rest of the summer. And then once the grass starts growing a little slower, we can do that as part of the normal state of affairs. But you should see a pretty good response on those landscape tickets. And then I did want to point out that our resident services area is really coming along. They are on top of pretty much everything now. I've noticed the lines are a little shorter. The backlog of tickets and extra work tickets are almost zero. They've really got a good crew over there, and they got several more in training. So I anticipate the transition over to this call center is going to be fairly smooth. And then I did want to give Chris Spar a shout out. We had an incident last week where a resident basically ran into the building with their vehicle. Our newly installed bollards actually prevented any further damage, but the woman was quite upset, and her son was out of town, who usually is around, and so Chris took it upon herself to help this resident and get her squared away, get the car towed to her. She had a favorite body shop, so that made me a little bit nervous. You know, most people don't need one enough to have a favorite one, so I didn't inquire. So we were able to take care of that, and then get her home and notify the son who was out of the area. And Chris really, she really epitomizes customer service, and I was very happy. I heard from the resident, and she was so pleased that we were here to assist her in this kind of unfortunate circumstance. So really, really pretty pleased with what's going on in the customer service area. So with that, I would certainly entertain any questions or comments that board members would like to offer.
Request to speak button, please. My screen is blank.
Director Beckett.
Not on my screen. All right.
Thank you, Mr. President. Back in May, on May 2nd, we passed a purchasing policy, and it talks about minor projects less than 1,000, small projects 1,000 to 25,000, medium projects 25,000 to 100,000, large projects 100,000, very large projects. This is the one that concerns me. It says the additional process and specific procedures required for very large projects above $500,000 with direct and board involvement not covered here. We have an item on our agenda this afternoon, today, for a very large project, and I'd like you to stick around and help us explain to us what is the policy for very large projects. Is that okay?
Sure, be glad
Thank you.
to.
Okay. Thank you, Brad. Okay. We now are at the open forum, which I imagine why some of you are sitting in the audience. The open forum is for items not on the agenda. So if you're here because of something that's on the agenda, like the lawn bowling, this would not be the time to speak. But if the item's not on the agenda, this is the appropriate time, and we ask that you very slowly state your name and manor number so that the secretaries can get that information, and we do limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Cash Akrikar, manor number 201E. First, let me compliment you for being so well-dressed and organized in this meeting. But at the same time, I want to tell you that we learned yesterday that every word counts in terms of our communication. And when you say, you ask that you turn the phones off, it should have been I request. And second, manners such as resignations, etc., are kind of demeaning in a big meeting like this, and you do have a closed meeting to discuss those kind of issues. Second, I would like to say, Nextdoor website with some of the negative comments should also be monitored, like we are looking at doing work on Facebook and other monitoring systems. We are spending so much money. Maybe you should consider looking at answering some of the negativity that is built into some of these comments for the future, for the betterment of our community. Thank you.
Chris Collins, 3306Q. Good morning. I'm here representing the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village. Recently, the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village was made aware of problems faced by those who are visually impaired. Consequently, we are embarking on 2 new endeavors to help village residents who are visually impaired. First, the Foundation is starting a new partnership with the nearby Braille Institute. The Braille Institute offers one-on-one consultations, small group classes, and home visits, all designed to help people with low vision to live well. Within this framework, the Foundation is starting a 1-year project with the Braille Institute, which will help needier village residents to purchase magnifiers, canes, and specialized lighting. The way this will work is that the Braille Institute will apply to the Foundation on behalf of Laguna Woods Village residents who are deemed financially needy for funding of needed items to help them live independently. All requests will be kept confidential and vetted by social services. Quarterly progress reports will assess the success of this new pilot project. In addition, the Foundation recently purchased 5 new CD players and 25 new talking books listed on Amazon's bestseller list for the village library. The vision of the Foundation is to continue to assist village residents who meet special needs. If you are aware of need in the village, please contact us. Again, thank you for your generous ongoing support to the Foundation of Laguna Woods Village.
This is rather extraordinary. It appears that member comments are over. So I will turn it over to response to open forum speakers. Joan.
To Chris for just a second, where should they make the request if there is, if they need to contact you?
We have a website. We have there's a website and there's also a phone number. And if you go online, you can see that. I didn't say that to you because I thought them just saying out loud, unless you write it down. But anyway, yes, thank you for pursuing that. We really do appreciate assistance in that way. Any assistance, all of your assistance. And I want to acknowledge all of you for the huge time investment that all of you have in being here and doing this and listening so patiently. So thank you.
I just want to mention the other way, of course, is through social services.
Yes, that's true. Because
Thank you.
yes, everything that we do is vetted through social services. We don't do any of that part. It's all on referrals because the way this works is social services gets requests, and if they can plug in the requests with funding that they have, that's what they do. But we do things that are not necessarily under the umbrella of things that they fund. And because we've had the largesse of some very good bequests lately, we're expanding, always expanding. And actually, there was a large bequest just recently, and in that bequest, that person was visually impaired, and so our heightened awareness of that and this moving into working with Braille. And of course, we have the thing going on with Alzheimer's of Orange County for the respite care. So we are trying to expand. So thank you so much.
Joanne?
Thank you. There were 2 things. One, when President Parker mentioned that I voted against support of staff, I think he misunderstood my vote. I vote in support of Director Beckett. And yesterday, all of the boards, including VMS, experienced training of harassment. And I think that the lady who was giving us our information about harassment was pretty clear about you're always a director no matter what. But when pressed further for clarification of gray lines. I felt that she refused to step over in one way or the other because there are a lot of gray lines. And I am very sympathetic to Director Beckett, and so I want to support him, but I don't want our staff to feel that I don't support our staff. I think that it's a really fine line, and it's certainly difficult for me, and I can appreciate that just about everyone sitting on all of our boards has a hard time. What do you do? It's not as easy as this looks. That was number one. And two, Brad and Lisa both mentioned the Dwelling Live lack of success. And I saw that in the e-blast, there was some instruction on Dwelling Live. And people like me, who are not as skilled as we should be, maybe need additional assistance. I'd like to use it. It's not as easy as it sounds when you read it. To transfer the written word into the actual doing of it is sometimes difficult. And I don't know, I can't suggest any way to make it easier for people other than having someone come to our house and download it for us. But it might be something that our wonderful people at the front desk might be able to help us with. I would like to do that, and I don't know, I'm sure everyone on the board has Dwelling Live, except for me. I really don't know how to do it, and I would like to have it installed. But keep up the good work. We're moving forward,
Well, we have a video, which is instructional. I'll send that out again. And then also you can call resident services and they can kind of talk you through it from there. There are a couple of points here that I have to make. One is Dwelling Live has succeeded in basically taking over the market for this sort of thing. And their infrastructure has really not kept up with their success. And so they're really scrambling right now to build more capacity. The mobile app can be at times a little slow to download. Maybe some of you have experienced that. And so it just depends on the time. But the desktop version is super fast. So they're making some corrections. So I would tell residents who maybe have experienced some slowness with the mobile app, use a desktop, which you can download there, or also just go through our website. We have a link there. That's probably the easiest thing to do is go to our website and access, gate access off of our website. That's supersonic fast. And then I'll keep you updated in terms of how Dwelling Live is doing in terms of building more capacity into their system. They've just had too much success too quick. And this is a pretty big application for anyone. I doubt that they have another community with this many gates and this many residents in their system. It's a pretty big deal. So I just offer those. If you're using the mobile app and not having problems, keep doing it. I suspect a lot of it has to do with the time of day that you do those sorts of things, but I have heard from a few residents that the download's been a little bit slow. So I just offer those comments to assist you in the interim until they build some more capacity.
Director Beckett?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to respond to Cash's comment about kudos, and maybe we should ask about the negative side, too. It's very important for management to be aware of the commendable behavior of our staff members, and those people need to be complimented and rewarded. On the other hand, if one of the staff members is not quite living up to his responsibilities, I think we would benefit by learning those things too. And so I hope that we'll solicit not just praise, but also criticism. Thank you.
Catherine?
Just to follow on what John said, John, really, the appropriate way to address that issue is through Brad. You would always go to the individual who has the responsibility for the individuals. And that's what we learned yesterday, is that as directors, we do not have the authority, basically, to deal directly with employees. We work through the management structure, and I'm sure any of us who, when we worked in industry, you worked through your management structure. And as we're learning nationally, with what's going on in the White House, they're really trying to establish a proper structure for effective communication and effective organizational accomplishment. And that's really what it comes down to. And then I'd like to also comment on the foundation is, I'm really very proud of what the foundation does. How many HOAs or communities like this, private communities, have their own foundation that takes care and supports their residents? That is really very unique. And it's something that we all should be proud of and encouraged to support when we have the opportunity. And I just want us all to appreciate what we have here and what is continuing to build for all of us. Thank you.
Brad?
I've just a couple thoughts to follow up on Catherine. I'm not aware of an HOA that has a social services department that is supported by this board that works in partnership with the foundation to assist our residents. If it's not unique, it's darned close to unique. And again, I'm not aware of a model. I did want to, and the board doesn't need reminding, but maybe the community does, that I meet with probably 20 or 30 residents every week and probably get another 50 to 100 emails. When a resident comes to meet with me, they're usually not coming to tell me that somebody did a great job. So that's usually email stuff there. No, I'm hearing the good, the bad, and the ugly, and usually face-to-face. And so I have plenty of opportunities to hear from residents exactly what their experience out there and to try to make corrective actions to enhance their experience in a number of areas, whether it be direct service, like either manner alterations or a maintenance item or landscaping, or maybe something more indirect like the cable service or internet service. So I hear about it all, and I try to respond and be respectful and make sure that residents' concerns are addressed appropriately. I do have to say, we have instituted a degree of accountability here that has never been seen before. We are evaluating and documenting not just an employee's attitude towards their customers, towards the management, towards their boards, but also their productivity. And so we are holding people accountable in ways that have never been seen here before. And I think that's why you're, in part, seeing a productivity increase with about the same number or a few less staff than were here a couple of years ago. So that's part of it. A part of it is a lot of the work Chuck's doing too. There are efficiencies in technology that are allowing us to be better and more efficient in terms of delivering services to our residents. So there are a lot of things going on there, but accountability is one of the biggest ones.
All right. Any further director comments? All right. Richard?
Yeah, I would like to make a comment about what Cash had to say. Attacking anybody, the perception is that he spoke for the board, and that is totally untrue. He actually, that was his own opinion. And because it was on the newspaper, we felt that, I'm not speaking for John, he doesn't need the protection, but I just feel that it is important to let the community know what was really going on and that he did not speak for the board. And so I think it's important to make that statement. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, the next item in our agenda is the consent calendar, item number 11, and we now have 11A and 11B. Part of the consent calendar C has been moved to new business. So I'm seeking approval of the consent calendar. Catherine?
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
And Diane seconds it. So motion was Catherine and Diane Phelps. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of the approval of the consent calendar, commence voting. cease voting. The consent calendar is approved. Okay, we now will move to item 12A, which is unfinished business, which is to entertain a motion, and that is a resolution, so I will let the secretary read the resolution.
This is the additional occupancy fee. Resolution 90-17. Whereas the GRF assessment for net operating costs and reserve contributions is divided equally by the number of units in the community, regardless of how many individuals occupy a unit. And whereas an additional occupancy fee is charged for each individual in excess of 2 occupants residing in a unit to account for the additional use of community services and facilities. And whereas, as part of the business planning process, the board recently reviewed the adequacy of the fee, which is currently set at $47 per month, which is 25% of the total GRF assessment. Now, therefore, be it resolved September 5th, 2017, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby sets the additional occupancy fee at $90 per month for each additional occupant over 2 to offset costs incurred by the extra occupants to be effective January 1st, 2018, and resolve further that such fee shall be reflected on the fee schedule, and resolve further that Resolution 9017-03, adopted January 3rd, 2017, is hereby superseded and canceled on the effective date of January 1st, 2018, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution. I so move.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. This moved by Joanne and seconded by Tom Circle. Discussion. My screen, I have a blank screen. And I didn't do anything. Okay, Director Beckett?
Do we know how many of our units have more than 2 residents?
I'll withdraw my request to speak, even though it's not showing up on your screen. We know how many are paying the fee, and it is a ridiculously low number. 270 in the entire village. If you think about that, 12,500 plus units, only 270 of them have more than 2 people in it. Now, I know that is a vast understatement, and there are a lot of folks doing a lot of interesting things to avoid paying that fee. And that is going to come to a very rapid conclusion for a number of reasons, but mostly because of the gate data that we'll be able to collect. We're going to know who is coming in and out of here and what time, what days of the week. And so we just actually, and we're already doing that in 5-6. We just caught a lady who's paying, well, she's coming for hearing before your board to pay 3 years of back fee. And so that's what's going to happen when we catch folks who have had an illegal occupant here without paying the fee, is we're going to try to track back how long those folks have been here and then retroactively apply that amount with a fine. And so we have that capability now, and it'll be greatly enhanced when the gates are done, but 270 is a ridiculous number. I would suspect the actual number of units with the 3rd resident are several times that. Yeah, several times. And so we have a lot of compliance work to do there, and we're now starting to gather the kind of data that will allow that to happen. And so I suspect that you're going to see a lot of compliance cases before your board relative to avoidance of this very fee. The other thing, I have to point this out, is here's the oddity, is for those that are actually legitimate, many of them don't live here. They pay the occupant fee so they can get an ID card and play golf with their buddies at our reasonable rates. They may live in Laguna or in Irvine or Newport, but they pay an occupant fee here, $49 a month, to their friend who is hosting them, and then they get the card, and then they can play golf here for the prime rate of $49 a month plus $11 a round, which, in my mind, that's a pretty good price for an Orange County Country Club membership. Maybe we can make that available to senior staff here. I don't know. It sounds like a good deal. So that is the irony. The actual number of people who are living here as an occupant and paying the fee is much less than the 270, because a good deal of those folks don't live here. They just pay the fee to get the card. So there's a number of these little things that are all coming to an end because we have access to much better data, and when the gates are constructed, it will be much easier to detect some of these interesting activities that occur to avoid the rules and paying a fair share that, quite frankly, falls upon the members to absorb because other folks aren't paying. So I'm looking forward to solving that problem.
Any further comments, Director Beckett? All right, next speaker is Judith.
On the other side of that cone, there have been several instances where there's 3 or 4 people in a unit, and they're paying for that extra person, and then the person passes away or moves, and then you forget to come in and bring the card and let them know on the books that that extra person isn't there, and so then for a year or two, they're paying that extra $47 that they could have saved because that extra person did move. So if you've lost a member in your unit and you've been paying that extra fee, make sure you come in and tell them at the office, because then they'll adjust your assessment accordingly.
Joan?
I think we have to add that this is going to be postponed for 30 days in print at the bottom of the resolution.
It is on the agenda.
Yes, it is on the agenda, but it's not printed at the bottom of the resolution,
Okay, so shall we call that a Scribner's?
if you wish.
We don't usually put it at the bottom of the resolution because the resolution lasts forever.
It's been at every, well, okay.
But it is noted in the agenda. Okay. All right, Joanne?
Thank you. Brad, Judith brought up a really good point. Can people then apply for retroactive deceases, just as we can charge retroactively for additional occupants who haven't been paid? Well, it's, if you can go one way, can you go the other?
Yeah, I'm not aware of a case where that has ever happened, but if it did, I suspect within the current fiscal year, we could probably do that, or in the current year. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just reply? Sorry. I think that when we first started tracking people in the clubhouse, in the fitness center, I thought we found people whose parents had passed away and they had just taken the card and used it. So we don't really know what people are doing with the extra card.
Yes, no, that clearly, what had happened, apparently there wasn't a process until recently to deactivate cards where maybe a member had passed away or sold their unit. Now, they're supposed to turn them in. They don't always do that. And so we deactivated 20,000 cards about 6 months ago. 20,000 cards from people who are no longer residing here, no longer members. Maybe they passed away. And so we had a lot of folks showing up to play golf and use the fitness centers. And so when we got the card and swiped it, they were denied access. And they were not too happy because they'd been coming here free of charge for years and years, and we've just stopped all that. And so that's why at the tennis center, at the garden center, there are a lot of different places now you see card swipes. That's a big part of that, is to control that access. We also have residents who will say, well, I lost my card, come in and get a replacement. And then in the past, that other card was used, say if they leased their manor, so they could still come in and play golf even though their manor was leased. Well, now we immediately turn that off, and so that little process doesn't work anymore. And now, once the gates are in place, if you're just presenting your ID card to access this community and you don't have an RFID, then we will take that card from you and swipe it before you get to come through the gate. And if you're not authorized to have that card, we will confiscate it and escort you out of the community. There's a lot of that goes on, and we're putting a stop to all that. The members have been absorbing the cost of these sort of folks who illicitly use your amenities. And so I think that's going to make it much better for all of you. Better tee times, that piece of equipment on the fitness center that's used by somebody who shouldn't be here, now you can use it because they won't be here anymore. So there's a lot of that going on, and I think it's going to be much, much better. And I thank Tom and Chief Moy and Francis and Resident Services have all grouped together to tackle this problem, and it's really come together quite nice.
Okay,
389Q, Andre Torn. I heard a lot of comments about the $90 is hopefully target towards those third person or fourth person that come in pay that $47.90 to play golf and fitness center. I don't think increase to $90 will stop them at all. Has no effect on them at all. Even $900 probably won't have any effect. Probably $9,000 will have some effect. So this will not solve that problem. What I suggest is it possible that we charge them as non-resident fee or non-member fee? That will stop them. And if any other reason, because this one, we can talk about it. But if that's the reason, I would think that's not a reason to increase the fee. Thank you.
Cash Aggregator 201E. Oh, I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Cash.
I'm sorry.
Mary Stone, 356C. I only have a question, and that is, will this additional occupant fee be waived when the person has caregivers that are there to take care of him? We have a family in which the husband and wife are taking care of somebody who is obviously not using the facilities at all, is basically bedridden. And I think that in that situation that maybe we need to consider that a disability accommodation and the fee should be waived.
We can't monitor that.
Now there's no one behind me. 201E, Cash Aggregator. With the figure that, first let me compliment your organization. You've done an excellent job. With the figure of 270 third occupants, that number with $53 each addition comes to $57,240. And your comment here is 25% of total GRF assessment. $57,240 is not what you show in your.
It's the monthly assessment.
Yeah,
It's the portion of the monthly assessment that is GRF.
I see, okay. Thank you.
Diane?
I just wanted to address what Mary had to say. I think that if there are people for whom this is a hardship, I don't know at this point if there is a way to get them exempt from the fee. I don't think it's a part of it. And I guess I would say that it's really not just the clubhouses and that kind of things. It's the roads, it's the gates, it's the landscaping, it's the water, it's all that. And it's not meant as a penalty. It's just that we think that if you're here, you should share in the cost of maintaining this place.
Yeah, a caregiver is not an occupant, and so if they just have a caregiver access to the community, they wouldn't be charged the fee. If they actually get an occupant card or status, then they have to pay the fee because they have access to community facilities. So that's the balancing act. If they're just here as a caregiver, no fee. If they're here, but if they're still a caregiver, they're just a caregiver. But if they actually apply for occupancy, then they would pay the fee because they would have access to the community assets.
And I believe that the mutuals have implemented some caregiver criteria that did not previously exist. And I believe one of the components of that is that caregivers need to have an identity badge at all times. And should they be at the GRF facilities like a pool, et cetera, that they are with the person they're caring for. We've had some caregivers that have led a very comfortable life in our community at our expense.
I feel like I do have to comment. Again, caregiving is also one of the most abusive areas of access to our community. There are a lot of people living here who are not caregivers. They are somebody's son or daughter or grandson or granddaughter who just got out on parole. And they're here in your community taking things from your carport or your patio. And we catch them all the time. All the time. Virtually all of these petty thefts and burglaries you hear about are somebody's son or granddaughter or grandson or granddaughter staying here as a caregiver.
Joanne?
That happens frequently. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm segueing onto Brad's comment. I understand that Third is beginning a process of permitting only licensed caregivers, and I don't understand what the process involves, but it's certainly better than not having any qualifications.
United's already done that, and there is a state certification for a caregiver. Registration. Which is not terribly difficult, but it's still one more thing than we ever asked anybody to produce in the past. Tom?
This whole subject that we're discussing is security issues. Brad, the security committee and I and Chief and Brad, we've been working on all of these kinds of issues, and we have convinced people that there's problems here. A lot of people didn't believe that there was thefts here, or there was people taking advantage of other people, or using, sliding in where they shouldn't and not paying. People didn't want to believe that here. I think when we took over our own management and hired appropriate people and hired a chief of security that knows what he's doing, we've funded him better, we've trained him better, we're giving him a better mission. And guess what? We're finding out that there's problems that were there that we're fixing. So I ask that we do support these kinds of things. We're going to have to eventually stand up and tell cheaters they can't do it anymore. And this fee will help, but support of the security personnel, support of our gate access system, support of my committee, I appreciate, and I see it as the future here. Thank you.
Okay, there being no further discussion, I ask all those in favor of this motion to commence voting. Ready to cease voting? Oh, here we have. Motion carries 8-0. All right. We are now on item 13A.
So a motion?
And I would like to mention that this was discussed, there were special meetings regarding the bowling contract. And it was a GRF committee, meaning that it's composed of members a member from the Towers, 2 members from United, 2 members from Third, plus 3 members from GRF. And the consensus at the meeting that passed it up to this board was to approve the renovation of both of the lawn bowling courts. The feeling that was that this is an issue that has existed in this community for too long, and the can's been kicked down the road long enough, and let's get it done and deal with it. And the person that is usually most vociferous regarding funding and the cost of things that might require the approval of the corporate members was on the committee and totally endorsed this expenditure and this funding. And so there's no issue there. So that committee gave this board a very clear path and a very clear recommendation. So with that, I'll let Joanne read the resolution.
Thank you. This is Resolution 9017XXX, additional funding for lawn bowling resurface. Whereas in 2013, the 2 lawn bowling greens located at Clubhouse 2 were converted from natural grass to a synthetic surface, and neither green has performed properly since the courts were converted. And whereas the cause for the undulations on the playing surface has not been determined, and whereas the Golden Rain Foundation recognizes the need to perform reconstructive maintenance on the lawn bowling greens, and that the remaining funds of $176,120 in capital plan JP 173800000 are not sufficient for the project requirements. Now therefore be it resolved, August 1st, 2017, the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby approves a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $412,303 to be funded from the Facilities Fund, and that a contract be awarded to True Draw Bowls in the amount of $588,423 to perform reconstruction maintenance on both lawn bowling greens to meet World Bowls requirements. And resolve further that CEO Bradley Hudson is authorized to execute the contract with True Draw Bowls, and resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution. And I'll move this resolution and be really happy.
And I'd like to second.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved by Joanne and seconded by Judith. Discussion. Director Beckett.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the fact that one of the members of the GRF committee who usually objects to spending money went along with this, but I still think there's a corporate member issue here. Even though that person may have agreed, we are nonetheless bound by the trust agreement and the bylaws that we recently amended, that all the boards recently amended. And one of the things it says in there is that the trustee is required to present in writing to the corporate members and obtain approval of the corporate members prior to any business or activity involving the demolition and rebuilding of existing facilities. And it defines a facility as a single structure of a minimum cost or minimum size stated in the bylaws. And the bylaws draws a line at 1,000 square feet and $500,000. So I do believe that there is a corporate member issue here, and we have to deal with that.
That is your interpretation of the bylaw. All right, next speaker is Joan Millman.
2 things. We save something like $45,000 by doing both courts. Well, according to my calculations. And John, I believe we are within our rights as far as the $500,000 is concerned. We are approving a supplemental appropriation of $412,000. So we are under the $5,000, and besides that, it is reconstruction maintenance. It is not the same as rebuilding and tearing down.
Diane?
My comment is not about this, so if someone else wants to talk specifically about this one issue, they can. Mine's about the amount.
Brad?
Yeah, I think the bylaws and the trust are pretty clear. If you're building a new facility or remodeling or expanding an existing facility by 1,000 square feet or more, then, and it costs more than 500,000, then you must get corporate member approval. So this is not an expansion, it's not a new facility, so it would not apply. Now, the 500,000 mark is not even considered unless you meet those other two criteria. They come first. It has to be an expansion, it has to be a new facility. For something even like the PAC, even though we know it's going to be a lot of money, that would not require corporate member approval. It's not an expansion, it's not a new facility. And so that's really the essence of this. And one could argue, even if it was a new facility, because it really talks about 1,000 square feet of new floor space. There's really not a floor on a bowling green, so it may not apply anyway. And so that's a esoteric question, but clearly this project would not trigger the corporate member approvals that the trust and bylaws contemplate.
Catherine?
Yes, I agree with what Brad had just commented on, having participated at the time when we were passing that bylaw change and amending the trust. And I'd like to speak to this. You know, it's a shame that it has taken us this long to get to the point where we're fixing this. I was on the boards at the time we approved the change, you know, from grass to the lawn bowling. And I remember, I wasn't on GRF at the time, but I was on the GRF M&C committee representing Third Mutual when this came up, and we approved to move over to the new material, which is a carpet material, because it was going to save us, I don't know, between $50,000 and $70,000 a year in maintenance of the lawn used for the lawn bowling. Unfortunately, during the process, and I remember conversations about it, was that to really do it right required us to go to contractors in Australia. Well, there are only 2 contractors in the world that know how to do these things. Unfortunately, PCM at the time and their project engineers seemed to feel that there has to be somebody locally that could do the job. And so they basically decided that they would go with a local contractor who they had apparently a lot of confidence in. But as evidenced by the result, it did not turn out. They didn't know how to do the job the way it needed to be done. And I remember, because I've lived in the community 24 years, and I remember every year when the lawn bowling had their international competitions, and people came from around the world because of the facility. And all we're really trying to do now is let's restore it to where we were before those dreadful decisions were made. And although it's expensive, let's bring it back to the quality that we all would like to see. And so I am voting affirmatively for this resolution.
Well, I guess we know which group is here.
Yes. And I'll just say one thing. Yes. I just want to thank all the lawn bowlers for coming, being so supportive, being readily available with all the data we needed to come to this decision today. And I want to thank you all for taking your time and being dedicated to that. Thank you.
Diane?
I have a question about the wording of the resolution. Everyone got a copy of the bid, right? This isn't a secret, okay. So I think that the contract is really for $535,000.
But there's a contingency, I think.
Right, but so I think that we want to have award a contract to them of 535, and don't we have a contingency, or is it going to be a part of the contract? Okay, that's it. Just want to make sure I understood, okay.
Okay. Director Beckett?
I'd like to reply to Mr. Hudson's comment that this is not an expansion or a new facility. That's correct, it's not. It is the demolition and rebuilding of an existing facility, which is covered by the trust amendment. Thank you.
In response to Director Beckett, we have consulted with the United Mutual Attorney, Jeff Beaumont, who drafted the change in the bylaws. And he, at that time, was working most closely with Pat English, who was the president of United at that time. Neither one of those parties support Director Beckett's interpretation regarding this facility. Joanne.
Thank you. I wanted to make it clear, this World Bowls company is not going to put grass back in. It's simply going to restore the option to have a world-class lawn bowling event and practice. I think, Catherine, maybe it was misleading what you said. This will simply upgrade it so that it's usable and qualified. And it's long due, and thank you for being patient.
It's not upgrading, it's basically redoing the whole thing.
It's a repair.
It's a repair to
A
get.
very expensive repair.
To get the thing to the way it should have been done originally.
Right. What should have been done, yes, but not.
Okay, without further discussion,
Okay, vote.
Question? Okay. 389Q, Andre Torn. I helped lawn bowling and photographed their events one time, and it was a pathetic place. I totally agree that it needs to be replaced. And as far as two questions I have is I'm seeing that in the spreadsheet, we have the cost here. I'm sure it has been done, but I just don't have any information on this one. One is what's the reference rating? Are these two lawn bowlers reference good, or are they licensed, or any kind of? You don't need to answer me right now. Okay. And the second one is what kind of warranty we have? From what I heard, the last one we had a problem with that was warranty wasn't good enough, so that's why we cannot go back to them and ask them to redo it. So I just want to see, maybe we need to document these officially somewhere or in the contract somewhere, and that need to be addressed, and making sure that we will not make the same mistake again. Thank you very much.
I would hope that you would give us credit for more intelligence than you're assuming that we have. All right, all those in favor of this resolution, commence voting. Or all those, commence voting, regardless of how you feel. All right, cease voting, and motion carries 7 yes, 1 abstain. I do not see him present this morning. Maybe he's hiding behind somebody, but Leon St. Hilaire. Oh, there you are, Leon. Leon has been a tireless proponent and patient and courteous ambassador to your group. He kept the motion, or he kept the problem in our forefront, but he did it with courtesy, and that was much appreciated. And we're all delighted that hopefully in the near future this is another chapter behind us. So thank you. I was going to let the room clear.
While we're waiting, oh, never mind.
Imagine that, a happy group.
John, we should have done that. Give them what they want and then leave. Yeah. That's nice for you.
Well, they're in the room. All right, the next item on our agenda will be 13B, which is to entertain a motion to direct staff to solicit bids to install a total of 3 air curtains. I know, but we can still move on. They're right back there. I have a quorum to talk. Okay, but I was I was saying what it was. To solicit bids to install 3 air curtains at the front and rear entrances of the community center building lobby, and to authorize the CEO to execute the contract for air curtain and installation not to exceed $12,000. And so, Joan, you can make a motion, can't you?
Okay, I move that we direct staff to solicit bids to install a total of 3 air curtains in the front and back entrances to the community center building lobby.
All right, it was moved and seconded by Richard Palmer, so discussion. Director Beckett.
There's a word in this staff report I've never seen before. ENTRAINED in train. Can somebody tell me what that means? In the staff report, under discussion. The
How about a
second line-
page number, please?
11C, page 1 of 3. The first paragraph, under discussion, the second to last line of that paragraph.
It's a quote from the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. So what's your question? That it prevents the outside air coming in up to 60 to 80%.
Infiltration.
Okay, Richard.
Yes, I've been a member of ASHRAE since 1950. But my concern is, I know they mentioned about a fly fan, and I remember in the wintertime, the winds are coming from the west and blowing through the front doors when they open up the rear doors. And you're talking about a pretty good size velocity of wind. So it's going to take a greater velocity to prevent that wind from coming in. And I really have to question the noise level that the fans are going to create and the discomfort that the people are walking through this air curtain. Now, I know it'll stop flies. It doesn't take much air to do that, but you're talking about a pretty heavy velocity. I'm not challenging staff. I know they made this recommendation, but I'm just concerned about the noise level. I know they're talking about the noise generated in the lobby was pretty excessive, and they're trying to damper it down. So they're going to be adding a lot more noise, and what's going to be more disturbing is going to be on and off, front door, back door. So I think there's got to be a simpler way of handling that situation. And I came up with one, but nobody liked it. So but that is to have, when one door is open, the other one can't be open. Now, people can exit without any concern. because you can't block an exit. But people coming in, if they're coming in the front door and it's open, the rear door will have a red light on, so they have to wait until the front door is closed, and vice versa. So again, my only concern is that I don't know how effective it's going to be. I know it's only $12,000, which kind of surprised me, but I'm really concerned about the discomfort and the noise level, and there has to be, I know, I've been thinking about this problem for a long time, and it's a serious problem because the people working at the reception desk have to put electric heater on because it's so cold. So I'm not trying to diminish what the problem is, but I'm concerned about the solution. Thank you.
Brad?
Yeah, this is a vexing problem, a real head scratcher that I've looked at quite a bit, as has Ernesto. And this is really one of 3 or 4 things that we're doing to address this, probably the most significant of which is to block off this walkway here from the second floor looking down. When that wind blows through there, it sucks the air out of the entire building, not just the first floor. It gets the second floor too. So that's got to be blocked off. The other thing too is having an automatic door that doesn't have to be individually activated. Everybody goes through there, so you get a full wide door opening for everybody that comes in, whether they need it or not. So even and I do it myself, I'm just guilty of it. Rather than going and pulling on that door and just opening it a couple of feet and slipping through, I walk through the automatic one and it opens up 4 feet and stays open for several seconds. And so we're eliminating that as well. So you'll actually have to actuate that to go through it. My personal preference, though, and I haven't given up on it, but the engineers kind of poo-pooed it a little bit, is to have a single door there that opens up. Instead of a swing door, it opens up horizontally, and I think that is a better approach as well. And these new air curtains are kind of modern. They're not as loud as the old ones. They don't blow your hair around. The other ones used to hit you in the face all the time. But virtually every commercial business that has a lot of volume of walk-in traffic has an air curtain of some sort for the most part. And so I think these are pretty modern, pretty high-tech. The only question, well, first I'd question why this would even be on here. It's such a small amount. It falls well within my authority. And I think maybe Ernesto just wanted to make sure, since you guys all walk through these doors frequently, that you knew what he was up to. That's probably a wise thing to do. But I think that all these solutions work together and are done sort of in consultation with the design professional who's redesigning the HVA system here, which you have in your next year's budget. So these things are kind of all part and parcel of that, but this can be done pretty quickly, whereas the redesign of the entire HVAC is probably a year or better off in terms of its design and installation. So I think this is a pretty cost-effective solution to this, and I think it'll work in partnership with these other pieces pretty well. I think there are some problems with interconnecting these 2 doors and kind of making them work in tandem, the front and back. Clearly making the 2 in front, either one or work differently, is a good solution. I like one door in front and have it be one that opens in a different fashion, but that's still under discussion with our consultants. But I think we should move ahead and at the very least obtain the 60 to 80% efficiency you can get, and we'll try to use these other techniques to get the rest of it.
Director Beckett?
Could you please give us some more details about blocking off the hallway?
Yeah, when you're on the second floor and you go outside the Sycamore and make a left, the entry atrium goes all the way to the top. It doesn't penetrate into the 3rd floor, but it penetrates into the 2nd floor. And when the door on the south side and the exterior door on the north side of the first floor are open simultaneously and there's wind outside, it takes all of the air out of the second floor. It just sucks it right out the building. And it's like a whole house fan, if you will. It's really just a poor design. It's a horrible design. And so we need to do these corrective things to stop that inefficiency. It's not the most inefficient thing we have in the village. I think Clubhouse 3 running, 50 tons of air conditioning for a 10 by 10 ticket booth is probably the most inefficient. And so this is probably the second most inefficient thing we have in terms of HVAC, but that's going to be fixed too. So we're just going through and knocking them off one at a time.
So we're going to be blocking the second floor?
Yeah,
John,
so when you walk out the Sycamore and make a left there and walk across the atrium, you won't be able to see down in the atrium anymore because there'll be a wall there. And it'll stop that air from being sucked out when those doors are open simultaneously. I think it's been on the books for a long time. It's just never been done.
But practically everything we deal with at these meetings have been discussed in committees. And when people attend committee meetings, they learn all sorts of things. Try it. The next person on my is Joan.
Yeah, I attended the CAC meeting, and as far as the air curtains are, M&C, I know what I'm saying. The air curtains can also blow warm air, so that in the wintertime, we don't have to suffer from a double dose of air conditioning.
Right.
Jesus, I can't believe for a $12,000 item that we're going to spend this amount of time on it. Okay, Richard.
Yeah, I don't know if I misunderstood you, but he's talking about putting a solid wall in?
Yes.
Well, what about just a glass wall?
We've talked about a plexiglass as well.
Okay.
I think probably plexiglass would keep that feature that we have of being able to look down there, but it'd be a pain in the, you-know-what, to clean from the other side.
Or at least maybe partial glass.
Maybe partial glass, that's possible too.
Judith.
Okay, Brad, just to be clear, this is for one or two devices, since we, right
Three.
now.
This is for three.
And right now, we have two doors, and you're
Two
looking.
and the back.
Are you looking, in the front, are you looking to change that to one
Well,
door at some time?
I was looking at it, but no one else agreed with me, so I guess we're
no,
not
no.
looking anymore.
Okay, that's what I want
I
to know.
like
didn't-
it.
Yeah, and
I
maybe
like the
it
idea,
might
but-
need
I
another
like it.
peek, but
Okay, so this won't be a waste to get all three
no,
right now?
no. I think.
Okay.
I'll ask that question one more time, but it doesn't seem to be popular.
Okay, I just wanted
And-
to clarify.
I am totally in favor that we not deal with $12,000 items if we don't have to.
Yeah.
Because we had something that was ridiculous, like $5,000 on something else last month, if I remember.
Normally I just do these things, but I think there was some thinking that since this is something that every board member is going to have to live with, that you might have some interest.
Okay, Juanita, you might as well add to the chorus.
Juanita Skillman, 2154N. I do attend the M&C meeting, and I don't think it has ever been discussed or brought up, but I wonder why we don't think of a door in the middle. Right past the elevators, there's an arch. If we put a second door in that would extinguish the wind tunnel, if you will, especially since the recreation department and all now is not going back there all the time. I think that it might suffice.
No, actually, if you remember the original project that actually has, I think, 80,000 or something of funding in it, was to create
The
that
airlock,
sort of
but that was
airlock
$98,000.
a Sally Port sort of feel to it, and I think it seemed like when you take into consideration the number of our residents who have access issues, and then you're going to have them go through another door and push another button, it just seemed kind of complex for those individuals. But I think that it's a legitimate design feature that will be considered as we look at the totality of how this thing works.
There being no further discussion,
Yeah, that was up front, yes.
let's commence voting. cease voting. Okay. The motion carries 6-1. Well, what difference does it make? Okay. So now, I believe we are in item 14, which is the committee reports. So Diane, you're up.
The Finance Committee didn't meet in July. Our next meeting, though, will be August 23rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. It'll be a meeting of all the boards, GRF United, Third, and the Towers, because representatives from BlackRock and Merrill Lynch will be discussing our investments. We'll also have a representative from Beecher Carlson, who is our insurance broker. They're going to give a comprehensive review of our insurance coverage. And that's not just GRF's insurance, but Third's and United's. And I don't know, are you also Beecher? Okay, so it will be at Towers as well. So even though we didn't have a Finance Committee meeting, this has been a very busy month. But I'll try to keep it brief. So, but that's hard for me. GRF has had numerous budget meetings, as have Third and United, and I assume the Towers as well. Our budget meetings are open, and most have been pretty well attended. Our next budget meeting will be on Wednesday, August the 10th. Our next budget meeting. Wednesday's, I think, the 9th. Wednesday, the 9th. I just went over this with Betty, too. I think Wednesday is the 9th at 9:30 a.m. Is that right?
9:30 a.m. on the 9th.
Yes. And it's going to be televised. We'll be discussing version 2 of the budget, which is currently showing an increase in the GRF portion of the assessment of just under $5 per manor per month. This is down from a previous version that would have resulted in an increase of $13 per manor per month. And then we will actually be voting on the budget at our September 5th meeting. I have a quick update on the charitable nonprofit. We've decided it will be called the Village Community Fund. And this will come as a surprise to Joan and Mary as well. I just had a call conversation or exchanged emails with a resident who'd like to remain anonymous, but she has a lead on an attorney who will help us pro bono to do the paperwork, to get this charitable entity up and going. And we are very appreciative of that and thank her. I get a big thumbs up from Mary, that's good. The other thing I was going to mention is the Naming Rights Task Force. Nothing so far has been done on that, but I hope to get moving on that in the next month or so. I'll mention a little bit, the Select Audit Task Force will be getting together in August to go over the RFP that will go out soon for the 2017 audit. So we'll get together with our CFO, Betty Parker, and get a possible date out, and then I'll get it out to our members, Jim Taylor, who represents Third, Phil Nideth, who represents GRF, and Elizabeth Accardi, who is our newest member, and she represents United. Okay, that's it. Now I just will go to the numbers. If I could have the first slide, please. Okay. So we're looking at financials through the period June 30th, 2017. So that means we're really halfway through the year. So we've gone through 6 months. So through June 30th, 2017, the total revenue for GRF was $19.9 million, compared to expenses of $20.3 million, resulting in a net expense of $385,000. Slide 2. slides up. Sorry. Slide 2, this chart shows activity and operations separate from reserves. After backing out depreciation, which isn't funded through operations, we can see bottom line, we had an operating deficit of almost 1.2 million through June. The board planned on an operating deficit this year as a means of returning prior year surplus to members. So we're halfway through the year. And so we will keep a close eye. We're trying to recoup $1.8 million. That's the loss that we are aiming for. So we will keep a close eye on that because we really would rather not go over that. Okay, and now we can go to slide 3. When comparing these results to budget, the most significant variances so far this year are attributable to, on the expense side, we've had temporary help and overtime. We've had unbudgeted expenditures required to address service levels in resident services resulting from higher call volume and extended hours. With legal fees, we had an unfavorable variance primarily due to payment of a settlement. Consulting fees, we've had it is unfavorable due to higher support than budgeted for financial software system to address infrastructure and accounts receivable billing issues. And in building, repair, and maintenance, it was unfavorable primarily due to remediation of a water line break at Clubhouse 4, although I do understand that reimbursement is expected from El Toro Water District. On the revenue side, the good news is we have had more transfer fees than expected in the second quarter. And as for the golf greens fees and the driving range fees, they were lower than expected in the first quarter due to inclement weather. Slide 4. On this pie chart, we show the non-assessment revenues received to date of $5.2 million by category, starting with our largest revenue-generating operation, broadband services, followed by the trust facilities fee, golf fees, clubhouse rentals, and so forth. These revenues help offset operating costs and keep our assessments down. Slide 5. The expenses to date of $20.3 million are shown on this pie chart, with our largest category being compensation, followed by depreciation, cable TV, and utilities. Slide 6, which is my favorite slide. John and I have our favorite slide. So this is the reserve and contingency fund balances as of June 30, 2017 are shown on this slide. Let me get it in front of me. Excuse me. Okay, so the additions to the reserves have totaled just over $2.6 million year to date. $1.8 million is from assessments, $1.2 million is the trust facility fee, and an additional the $180,000 is interest. Although fund balances show a combined book balance of $33.3 million, we have many projected expenditures approved by the board through the capital plan or via supplemental appropriation. After considering those commitments, the unencumbered balance shown, it shows an estimate of $13.7 million as our unencumbered balance for our reserves. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Diane. Director Beckett?
The audit task force meeting, is that going to be open or closed?
It's usually closed, and it'll just be talking about that one issue, the RFP. Although, I guess we decided... I'll ask Betty and get back to you, John.
Okay, thank you, Diane. And community activities, Joan's going to give us the update on that.
Community Activities Committee did not meet this last month, and our next meeting will be September 7th at 2 p.m. here in the boardroom.
Thank you, Joan. So Media and Communications, Joanne?
Thank you. Media and Communications did also not meet, and its next meeting is Monday, August 23rd. I have to write it down.
All right.
Thank you.
The Landscape Committee did meet,
21st.
and we had no action items in the landscape meeting. And one of the issues that we were pleased to report was the funding that was passed at our last board meeting regarding the Aliso Creek and the mitigation credits and all of that. We did find out we asked for an update on the Arbor Pro project, and right now, Arbor Pro did not separate out which trees were in Third, which ones were in United, and which ones were in GRF. And they're in the process of doing that. And right now, the estimated value of our urban forest in this community is, Joanne?
1 million, isn't it $1,100,000?
It's more than that.
I have to go look it up.
110.
110, it was 112, we thought
What?
120.
You're right,
it
it's
was
110. Thank you, Diane. You should be in charge of finance.
But the reason I bring that up is because when we were talking about some of the values that exist in this community, our GRF assets, like the clubhouses and that sort of thing, are valued at around 140 million. But what we have since learned is obviously that value does not include the trees, and we will soon have individual figures for the different areas. It also does not include the golf course. So in talking to Brad, he thinks that the estimated value of the community golf course, clubhouses, and the trees and so on is easily 300 million or more. And that's what, when somebody pays the transfer fee, they're buying into this community. It's kind of a way to put it in perspective.
We need to get that information to the real estate people.
Well, there's a special meeting with the real estate people coming up.
Will we be notified?
Yes. Okay, so nothing life-shattering in landscape. We will not have a meeting in the next, because of our every other month schedule. So I turn it over to Judith.
Wait, can I
Yes.
make a comment? The $140 million list, that really is just items for which we reserve, and that's why we don't reserve for those others, that's why they're not on there. And the other is that when you said that the $5,000 was a buy-in, and the question is whether each time you have to buy in, and so I think we just refer to it as a transfer fee as opposed to a buy-in.
Okay. Well, you're rebuying. And I think that there is something that this board will be dealing with in the future, is there should be reserve funding for the golf course.
We do take care of it, we take care of it out of, right.
But it makes sense. It makes sense that it should be a reserve-funded facility. Yeah. Judith?
Okay, GRF M&C, the last meeting took place on Thursday, July 20th, in here in the boardroom at 1:30 p.m. The meeting started with a presentation by El Toro Water District outlining the Phase 2 of the Reclaimed Water Project and the benefits to this community. El Toro requires the purchase of 2 easements in the community to complete this phase, and compensation to GRF would be $4,100 for the 2 easements. Then the committee motioned to recommend that GRF approve a contract with True Draw Bowls for construction of the 2 lawn bowling courts located at Clubhouse 2. The cost would be $588,423, and the proposal would require a supplemental appropriation from the Facilities Fund, $412,303, and I'm happy to say that passed this morning. The committee then reviewed the design construction plans for the new pickleball courts that will be located on Parcel 3, located on the corner of Moulton Parkway and Gate 16. Staff is preparing the final documentation for city plan check submittal. The cost of the 6 courts will be just under $500,000. We then had an update on the PAC Clubhouse 3. Last month, staff and SVA spent 3 full days collecting data from the 26 primary user groups. SVA presented an evaluation and assessment of the building, and Clubhouse 3 requires $1.5 million in just immediate needs, such as fire, life, and building and safety repair. Since GRF already has approximately $1.7 million already allocated for that building, plans to make those repairs are in progress. We also received an update on the simulcast antenna being installed just behind the broadband building up by the maintenance yard. When completed, this satellite dish will allow broadband to maintain a higher quality and level of service to our residents. This project was fully funded from the 2017 capital plan at $294,215. And Brad spoke a little bit on how that transition from the old antenna to the new antenna was going to take place this morning. The committee has been looking at solar thermal heat for the pools, Clubhouse 1 and 2. And due to the facility, or the fragility of the tile roofs, placing solar on those buildings at this time is just not feasible. So staff is looking at other alternatives for solar heat at those pools. Staff is also looking for options to reduce the loss of energy through the existing lobby doors. Here in the community center, we also discussed that in detail today, and happy to say we passed that resolution for the air curtain, 3 air curtains. And as far as the HVAC system goes for this building at the community center, staff is working with IDS to modify the original design to bring the project within the 2014 budget of $533,400. So that's been going on for 3 years now. Finally, from the project log, I want to mention that gatehouses 8 and 9 are in much need of repair. So staff was directed to accelerate the project from the proposed 2018 capital plan. The 2017 budget will give us $43,000 for the dry rot interior in those buildings, fixtures, counters, paint, flooring, bathrooms for those little buildings. And then the dwelling live, they're preparing those buildings to accept the dwelling live system so that we can in turn install the new gate arms. The next scheduled M&C will be September 21st of 2017 in this room at 1:30. And that completes the M&C for GRF.
Thank you, Judith. Tom?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Security and Community Access Committee did not meet in July. We last met on June 22nd, of which I reported the results of those efforts last meeting. However, our next meeting is August 24th, 2017 at 1:30, in case anybody wants to attend. I do have some items of importance that I'd like to advise you. Tomorrow at 1 p.m., our security inspector and a traffic specialist will be receiving accommodation from the city for their actions in taking a theft suspect into custody a few weeks ago, which is just, again, another example of good work that our people are doing. We have, however, are continuing to update the business work pass that will require all contractors, businessmen, et cetera, to obtain an annual pass and to pay a fee for each additional vehicle entering our community. We do have an issue with the contractors having one pass, but then their work crews park in visitor spaces, et cetera, and create problems for our residents. And this business pass program is designed to fix that. What else? I'll go ahead and do the traffic court also. We did have a traffic court that Ray Gross chaired on the 19th of July. Total people that appeared, there was 27, and we had 2 no-shows. Again, stop sign speed, few no driver's license, which is about normal for each month. So nothing of real super significance. I would like to take this moment to give kudos to the training for yesterday in regards to leadership. The class information about leadership was very effective, on point, and I know in the security business and law enforcement business, this issue of leadership and appropriate way of handling our business is important. And so I give kudos to the staff. I thought the instructor was well qualified, a very good teacher, and I hope all board members listened and will respond appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Diane, the business planning committee, I'm sorry. Joan, mobility.
Mobility and Vehicles Committee did not meet last month, but we are meeting tomorrow, August 2nd, at 1:30 here in the boardroom.
Thank you. And the business planning committee is a seldom, it is a group that meets very infrequently, but there was a meeting, and the business planning committee consists of the president and usually the treasurer of each mutual, and plus GRF. And so Diane, I asked if she had anything to say regarding that.
And that was really, we got what was like the preliminary version, not even, and it's been changed a number of times since.
It's like
but
the
of
first
budget,
pass
right,
of the budget as presented by
And
staff.
Most importantly, we talked about capital items, I think.
Okay. All right. Future agenda items. We have entertained a motion to increase the trust facilities fee from $2,500 to $5,000. And this is something that's under consideration. And there will be a meeting with the realtors that do business in our community prior to our next board meeting. And, I'm sure everyone will be made aware of when that meeting takes place. To my knowledge, it hasn't been scheduled yet. So, but it will take place. Director comments. Catherine?
I just have a question on that. It says there's no waiving of any resolution, right? Oh,
That just got inserted as kind of a Granicus thing.
okay, because we will have a resolution at the next board meeting relative to that issue, I'm sure. Okay.
So, all right, my screen's dead, so I'm just going to go around the room. We're now at director comments.
I want to talk about the harassment class we had yesterday. I learned a lot of things at that class, and one of the things I learned is you never take off your director's hat. Even if you identify yourself as a member of United, even though you're talking about a United issue, still people will come to the conclusion that you are speaking as a GRF director. So when that happens, it's something that that I regret if it did. Thank you.
I am absolutely amazed we're finishing before noon. In 9 years of being on boards, I don't think this has occurred. And so it's absolutely amazing, and we're learning how to use the electronics better. So I just appreciate that we're managing to move through these agendas much more quickly. And particularly, I think one of the things that has helped is, by having our committees meeting every other month is really beginning to change how much time staff needs to spend with us in support of the activities. And I think it's also a sign that the community is beginning to function much more effectively than it has, at least in the years that I have been involved. So kudos to staff for helping us get to this point. Thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, I just want to add to that. That's because we're staying out of their way and letting them do their job that we hired them to do. And the directors are not taking up time, emails and everything else, which again, I would just suggest all of us keep working as a team. And there's a lot to say when I say work as a team. I know there's some people that think we're 11 individuals we all can do whatever we want, but that's really not the case. This is a team who works for a bunch of residents. Thank you.
Diane? Judith?
I think this is the first time in months, and you're going to say something, that we were done before noon.
Nothing.
I hope that we'll continue to repeat the kind of meeting we had yesterday with more examples of how our boards need this kind of training. Also, I hope that we'll continue to repeat Robert's Rules sessions, so that, especially for the new boards that are coming on in October. I think that's important. Good meeting today. Thank you.
All right. What I would say about some of the information that was presented yesterday is none of it was new. We all have heard it in a different version before. And the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And with that, I will recess this meeting.